Happy New Year! Do you know, I was getting ready to send out a New Year's card to all of you, and it was going to say something along the lines of good riddance to 2020 and here comes 2021. And you know, I couldn't send it because I realized it really doesn't even align with how I've learned to think about things. And I mean, we all know that 2020 had a lot of crap in it, and that it challenged all of us in so many different ways. And so there's no denying that, but I have to be honest, when I pause and think about it, what I notice is that when I only focus on how 2020 happened to me, it feels pretty shitty. And when I shift my focus to thinking about how the parts of 2020 that ended up happening for me, there's a lot, like, for one, I hit my limit like 100,000 times in the year of 2020, whether it was at home with the kids or with trying to balance all the variety of responsibilities, or, there were just so many times when I would hit that wall where, and interestingly, I started to get to know that wall in a different way because it was showing up so frequently. And one of the feelings that would accompany it was like, everybody get the hell away from me. Like, I don't want anybody near me. I don't even want the dog to look at me. And what I came to understand is that it meant that that I was putting all of my focus on taking care of responsibilities and needs, and I wasn't doing anything for myself. And so I started discovering what some of those things were. And, before I had kids, those things would take me days of needing to do them. Now with kids, and then you throw COVID in, I only need like an hour sometimes, and it's quite restorative. So that was one thing that ended up, being for me. Another thing was really cultivating my ability to apologize, because when I would get closer to that limit, I would get more crabby and more yelly, and it felt really actually very good to be very human and be able to go to my kids or anybody else and say and apologize and tell them that it didn't feel good for me to be either acting or talking that way, and I know it didn't feel good for them, and to have a discussion, have conversations about it. It ended up being a very growing time in that regard too. And having the nonstop family time, it ended up being there were a lot of cozy, special parts of that, or the Black Lives Matter movement that really expanded in a whole new way during this year. And that was hard. That was hard in ways that I didn't even realize I was so unaware of, the way that my white privilege shows up, and I didn't have a clue. And so to be able to explore that and understand that more and notice and keep noticing, this is not something that I'm ever going to stop growing into, but understanding the ways that I interact with the world and how that promotes racial inequities and injustice, and how I can contribute to changing our world in that way. That was another powerful way that 2020 was for me. And creativity. Whew, guys, how creative did you end up having to be during this year, right? Like we had to get creative with how we grocery shopped, with how we spent our time, with how we lived together in tight quarters for such long amounts of time, and what we came up with to entertain ourselves. We got creative when we went on a road trip in the summer and created the on-the-go, the OTG toilet to have in the car with us. That's in a past blog. If you don't know about it, it's pretty funny. It was from, I think, the beginning of August or maybe sometime in July. Anyway, there were just so many ways that this year has ended up being for me. And so I invite you to of course you're going to notice the ways that 2020 happened to you. There's no doubting it. But I invite you to also just be curious about the ways that 2020 showed up for you and ended up growing you or expanding you or helping you see things in a new way or live life in a new way. And while you're doing that, notice what it feels like when you shift your focus from the ways that 2020 happened to us to the ways that it's happening for us and for you. Because I know for me, when I make that shift, I go from feeling kind of victim-y and powerless to feeling empowered and really to feeling empowered when I shift my focus to how it's happening for me, without denying the other parts of it that were not fun. And I will also mention that sometimes when we're in the middle of the yuck, it's not so easy to make that shift, and we have to wait until we're on the other side of it to be able to look back and recognize some of the ways that some of the yucky experiences have ended up happening for us. So anyway, I am wishing you a very happy new year and sending you love, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.